Thank goodness for the URC, eh? With the Six Nations being so good the last couple of weeks, I thought this weekend might feel like a barren, empty wasteland with no rugby as we wait till next weekend for the Six Nations to start again. But the URC was there for us with a couple of spicy South African matchups to take up Saturday afternoon. I mean, I know Super Rugby also started this weekend and had some really good matches, but not really at times of day when you can easily watch. This was the main event of the weekend, and some very important games in the URC competition. Lots to talk about. I've just finished watching those games between the Ocean teams going up to the High Veld, the Sharks of Durban, the Stormers of Cape Town, heading up to Gauteng for a couple of games, which could go a long way to decide where those teams and others finish in the URC log. And significant in the case of the Lions, a win for them at home for the Stormers, 30 points to 23. The full 5 points added to the Lions' tally gets them back in contention, massively needed. And it was a first half blitz, 15-minute blitz, really, 3 tries, won the game. That and a steely bit of resolve in the second half, some gritty defence, kept the Stormers out, who had loads and loads of chances, and by contrast, were just so wasteful. And the Stormers, they must look back at the last couple of games, these South African derby games, and think they could easily be sat there with 10 points. They've just got losing bonus points to show for it. As for the Lions, the positives are those fringe box players who really showed up, particularly in the back line. It was Kwan Horn was the man of the match, deservedly so, and he was at the heart of everything that went well for them. Absolutely carved through the Stormers a couple of times, both ending in tries in the first half. First one, he took the gap, inside ball, Morne van den Berg running that support scrum half line, try time, and exactly the same thing happened again, except this time Morne van den Berg was about to be tackled, so he shifted the ball, and it was Edwil van der Merwe who got the try, wasn't it? And also, when those 3 players, I mean, firstly, wheels. The Lions have got so much gas. Pace is scary, and they've got a lot of it. And then you add Henku van Wyk, who also got a try. And, I mean, he looks like a future Bok. He's had a load of injury issues. But the centre is one area where the Boks have got amazing players, but all getting slightly older. So that next breed with Lorenzo Julius, Ethan Hooker, and it's Henku van Wyk. And those 3 are the ones, aren't they, that look like they're going to take the centre position on for South Africa over the next decade. More on Julius and Hooker when I talk about the Bulls against the Sharks, of course, in a minute. But we're talking about a great Lions win. And yeah, those fringe box really did a job. And when you look at, it's not, Rassie Erasmus named his like a 60-man alignment camp just yesterday. And those guys were all in it. Those 4 Lions in the back line. They had 4 forwards named as well, or at least 4 forwards. And some of them were playing in this game, weren't they? There was Ruan Fenter, Frankie Horn, Klabakanye. Again, he did really well in the front row. And I was going to say JC Pretorius, but I'd like to see him in the wider box squad. I think he's just got a bit of a Quacker Smith kind of vibe about him. He was playing and did well up against Dion Ferry, but it's Renzo Duplessis who was the surprise package in the alignment camp. But yeah, I wonder, when you look at the age profile of the Lions, they're very young. And also when you look at the guys that are just pushing for international honours, they're the ones that are not quite in the picture for a shot. So they kind of might feel like they've got something to prove. Not only are they from the kind of lowly Lions, and I'm not saying that as a criticism, it's just how I can understand that might be how they feel because their players keep getting poached and it's hard to keep their squad together. They're young, they're not expected to do as much, they don't have the same resources as the other South African franchises, and they're going up against more experienced Springboks in these derby matches. And I just wonder if that's pulling out a little added bit of motivation. If I were the coach, that would be the thing I'd be peppering the squad with constantly. You know, go and prove what you're about. And I tell you what, some of those Lions players absolutely did that. As for the Stormers, what's going on? Because, like I say, they've got a lot more experience in their team, a lot more test caps to their name. You've got, obviously Franz Malherbe, his 150th appearance for the Stormers in this game. Dion Ferry, legend. And you've got guys that are higher up the pecking order than their Lions opponents in Salman Murat, Ben Jason Dixon, Evan Roos, to name but a few. That's half of the Stormers pack are, in terms of international pecking order, ahead of their opponents. but they're not quite delivering. Like in the case of Murat, I kind of want him to be a bit nastier. It's going to be horrible. You want a lock to just throw your weight around a little bit more. Clearly got all the skills and stuff, but I just want a little bit more. And just there feels to be a slight lack of cohesion. The most amazing stat from the game is that the Lions scored 30 points and they only got into the Stormers 22 7 times. The Stormers got into the Lions 22 13 times. So the points per 22 entry for the Lions was 3.5. For the Stormers, 1.5. Which you can't win games if you don't take your chances. And that stat demonstrates the Stormers did like 95 metres of really good approach play. And then, for want of a better phrase, just shat the bed a bit. 24-6 down at half-time. Like I say, those bang, 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 3 tries, gone. But they did well in the second half to claw themselves back to get the losing bonus point. But like I say, it had so many opportunities. And mind you, I'm talking about a lack of cohesion. It's easy to forget, isn't it, that they're without Sasha, Marnie, and Damien Philemza. Those 3 in particular, I mean, even if you had just one of those 3, it completely changes the dynamic of that whole team. Just one of them. And the fact they're without all 3, Warwick Hallant basically sort of said, right, I'll do it myself at certain points, went right and just did some amazing things. I mean, this is it. They've got players that do amazing things and then have brain farts. Ben Loader, only on his second game back in. Another player who's been injured a bunch of time. He got stuck in. But that was the story of the game. Just wasted opportunities for the Stormers. And that part of that is also, to be fair, it's not just that the Stormers messed up. It's that the Lions scramble defence and their just heart and desire was there. Scrums was a bit of a mess in general, but I expected more with the personnel they have. I expected more from the Stormers. And the Stormers maul, which has been a real strength for them, particularly the last time Stormers and Lions played each other. Fair play, Lions obviously did their homework because they completely nullified the Stormers. So, really good win. John Dobson, I mean, if he had any hair, he would be losing it over the last couple of weeks. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And honestly, this is probably a good time for me to give you a little bit of an update. I am coming back to South Africa. I'm very much looking forward to it as well. I had such a good time in 2024 coming out for those New Zealand Test matches. I'm coming back. I'm bringing my family because I want to show them some of the places that I found, and also want to come and see the rugby. So I'll be there in August for the Rugby Championship games against Australia and both against Australia. Hopefully, we'll get some announcements about where those games are going to be soon, so I can start to make proper plans. But I've booked flights and I'll be there and bringing the channel back to South Africa. I'm very much looking forward to it as well. And we'll wait and see about New Zealand v South Africa in September. That's as you can imagine, that's quite a logistical challenge, travelling literally to the other side of the world. But we will see. To help that happen, like I say, just hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. The fact you're watching does help. Let's get on to the Sharks going to the Bulls. Big game, this one. 3rd and 4th in the log on the URC. Obviously, bragging rights at stake as well. And a whole lot of box. Even with some of the box stood down from the Sharks team, there was still a bunch on show. And it was the Sharks that came away with the win. 19 points to 29. I tell you what, supporting these teams cannot be easy. And I just talked about John Dobson having no hair. I could quite imagine every Bulls and Sharks fan having no hair. The Bulls, because you're just tearing it out at the frustration about how your team is playing sometimes. And the Sharks, your hair's falling out from just pure adrenaline, not being able to take the stress of supporting the Sharks. They are... I mean, it's interesting to watch. There's no question. So much entertainment, and you're just on the edge of your seat the whole time. It was tight and tense at Loftus Versfeld. Not as explosive a game as I kind of expected. It was a little bit tighter and tenser, and the first half in particular didn't really bust into life. And you know, the one thing about the Sharks I'll say is that rule, which I think South Africa, the national team, kind of, well, and I'm talking as an England fan, talking about the 2023 and the 2019 Rugby World Cup, no scrum, no win, is usually the way it goes. And at international level, South Africa have certainly proved no scrum, no win. The Sharks completely tear that up, throw it out the window. What? No scrum, no problem. They got absolutely pumped at the set piece. And somehow you're just looking at that scoreline and go, if you just looked at the fact that at one point the Sharks were down to 13 players, and if you just looked at the scrums and saw them basically going back on roller skates, you're thinking, there's no way they're winning this one. They won it with a bonus point as well, full 5 points away at the Bulls, who I can understand their fans must be really frustrated when you look at the talent that's out there and how it's just not coming together. Like I say, that forward and set piece dominance that they had. I mean, look at the fact the Bulls' tries came from the guys in the number 1 and the number 2 jersey. That tells you everything about the Bulls' performance. They absolutely had the Sharks pack on toast, but couldn't drive the nail home. And I don't know, how much of that do you think comes down to coaching? I was thinking about this, and I know John Plumtree's come under a fair bit of stick as a coach for some of the Sharks' performances. The one thing you have to say watching that Sharks performance, and I think this is quite often, one of a key coach's role, to create an environment where people will go out there and be motivated and just put their body on the line. And you could see the Sharks doing that. They were up against it, set piece, and their scramble defence, how hard Ethan Hooker works on his wing, chasing kicks, chasing back, scramble defence. You have got guys in that Sharks team with massive hearts, and I think you can only get that when a coach creates a good environment. That's certainly my experience as a player, and that's certainly what you hear from players, is to be able to go out and be motivated to take yourself into that pain cave and do what's necessary. You have to be very together as a group of men, and you have to have very clear direction from a coach. So I'm kind of thinking, whilst earlier in the season I was thinking, I'm not sure about John Plumtree, maybe, you know what, maybe he's starting to pull something together. And a perfect example is the fact that he left out a load of box. No Etzebeth, no Khaleesi, no Nche, no Cock out of the front 5 Wolf pack. And he made that call, and then the players he picked went out and did it. Mavasira, that's it. Tino Mavasira, for example, Zimbabwean, only played like 10, 15 matches ever for the Sharks. He goes and pulls out an absolute worldie of a performance, man of the match performance, incredible try. And like I say, the hard work of the Sharks was the thing which really struck me. And the fact they weathered those storms. Flip side, and talking about coaching, flip side, Jake White, look, the man's won a World Cup. And I'll use the phrase that I've used this week talking about Warren Gatland. Jake White has forgotten more about rugby than I will ever know. But the issue when you watch the Bulls, and I think you have to consider the fact that this comes down to the coach, is they don't seem to be able to go off script. Like, they were absolutely pumping the Sharks set piece. And they managed to make that tell. There was the Maul try, and their Grobbelaar and Vessels scored the tries. So they made that count. But they just didn't seem to be, they hardly ever made a clean break. I think there might have been just one clean break in the whole game from the Bulls behind the scrum. And they've got really good players there. Billy LaRue was back in at 10. Kanan Moody, how rapid is he, by the way, was there. They've got really good players, but they just, I don't know, it's just not, something not there. They're not able to bust it open, and they're too reliant on their pack. And they need to unleash some of these weapons they've got in the back line somehow. I don't know. Maybe it is just the defensive performance of the Sharks, but I think there's something else going on. Tell me what you think, because I'm only watching from afar. I don't really know the ins and outs. What I do know is there was a massive penalty count against the Sharks, and that you'd have thought at the very least that would give the Bulls the kind of territory that they would need to go and deliver. But like I say, clean breaks. It was something like 10 clean breaks to the Sharks and 1 to the Bulls. I think it was like 8-1 at one point, the commentator said. That was on 70 minutes. Yeah. Wheels everywhere. That's the one thing that the Lions and the Sharks, the two teams that won today, have in common. Wheels all over. And look at where the Sharks' tries came from. often from deep inside their own half. In the case of, it was Julius, put the afterburners on, didn't he? And who scored that try? Oh, man. No, Penksy scored the kick try. I can't think. Was it Hooker went in and scored the try? I can't remember. Anyway, it was Julius that made the break, but it was different. Oh, Hendrickser. It was from deep inside their own half is the point I was trying to make, and they just had wheels. And you saw that again at other times, and that's one of the things I've taken away from this game: the speed. And this is without Apalili Fassi as well. The speed that the Boks have got within their teams, and speed like that is frightening. And when you can make that combination of a scary pack, backs lightning fast, it's good times. And well, the Sharks didn't have a scary pack, but they did have lightning fast players all over the park, and that made the difference in the end. There you go, just some thoughts immediately following the game. And thank you again to the URC. More games to come from them this evening. I'll be glued to it as I wait and tick off the days like a kid before Christmas, opening windows of the Advent calendar, waiting for the Six Nations to return. Those are some thoughts on the URC. Let me know yours, and I'll see you on the next one.